I'd like to bring the meeting to order, please. This is a joint meeting between the Advisory Budget Committee and the Board of Selectmen. And I will now turn it over to Tom, Chairman of the Advisory Budget Committee.
All right. Do we have the cemetery trustees first? Yep. Okay. Sure. Excellent.
Jan Neal, 46 Wednesday Hill Road, Cemetery Trustee. We are actually presenting the exact same budget that we had last year.
Simple.
Yep, any questions?
Well, I have a few.
Sure.
With the exact same budget that you had last year, but you don't have the exact same circumstance, if you would, this coming year, relative to things, you know what I'm talking about, you know.
Actually, as of right this moment, we've not been notified of any official changes, so that's why we're coming forward with the exact same budget.
Okay.
So you don't know any changes yet.
That's right.
And then we're gonna have to figure out who's doing what and all that.
You are coming to the next board meeting, right?
I am.
Okay.
Okay.
Okay. All right.
All right, so is
I guess we'll discuss those issues then.
Exactly. So
Okay.
that's why I said, as of right now, it is status quo, and then I'll see you gentlemen at the next meeting.
Okay, fine.
So,
Alrighty?
can I, in terms of following up with that,
Yeah.
based on the conversations that you have with the board at that particular time, you might be coming back with a
We may
revised-
need to amend our budget at that point in time.
Yeah.
But as of right now, it remains exactly as it has been the last several years.
Any new initiatives that the trustees are planning for this next year?
No,
Stones or
basically, as you know, it's been pretty indicative that it's been more than adequate. This particular year, we did have a really bad, a lot of bad damage over at the Bennett Cemetery.
anything?
If you're not familiar, it's the one if you come down Little Hook Road, down to the old Lickle property on the
Mhm.
left. There was a beautiful old cemetery out in the back, and we lost 2 enormous maple trees. So that, in our budget figures in, we have leeway one way or the other. So instead of doing some fencing project this year, as we had anticipated, the money will go to repairing the damage that was done there.
So did it break stones? or just-
Oh, actually, we were very fortunate. The stones were not broken. Because of the size of the limb that came down, it actually drove the stones into the ground.
Oh my
Yeah,
gosh.
yeah. So I went out there and we don't have a single broken stone. They're just submerged.
So this was
So you gotta get
vandalism
them
type
out.
damage or some, the tree?
Storm damage.
Yeah.
The tree is gonna be, I'm not, an arborist, but I'm gonna say that tree is over 200 years old. And when it came down, it was so soft and punky, it was enough that it drove, and the ground is really pretty wet there.
Yeah.
And it just drove the stones down into the ground. So basically, we have to remove, the damage, and then lift those stones back up again. But, that's where we are with that. And we were fortunate, that was the only real damage this year,
Yeah.
Okay.
so.
Good.
Guess I got the wrong room.
All right.
Are we good?
No other questions? Anybody?
We're good.
We're all set.
We'll
Terrific.
see you next
All right,
week.
Thank
we'll
you.
see you at the next board meeting.
Okay.
All righty, thanks.
Let's see, who do we have here?
Rotary?
Rotary? You wanna- Okay, all right.
I'm supposed to wait another 10 minutes, but I don't mind.
Right. Some didn't come, some did.
For the record, my name is Frank Reinhold, I'm from 590 Caleb Highway, and I'm representing the Durham Great Bay Rotary in our request. This is our first official request to the town of Lee to help the Durham Great Bay Rotary with the 4th of July fireworks that last year were at the University Fields. And the club has made a decision to run those fireworks again based on the, quite frankly, huge success we had with our previous presentations. We are asking the town of Durham, Lee, and Madbury and to Newmarket to participate, to help us, because this is a non-entrance fee event. And so as we run it as a public service, we're trying to help offset the cost of running the event. I did forward a budget over. We spent approximately $35,000 on the event last year. The club has had to cover approximately $5,000 to $6,000 of that expense because we were unable to raise enough money. And so we were willing to absorb that, but we're hoping our fundraising will be a little more effective this next year. But we still think it's important, as we're trying to run it as a community event. We'd like not to charge fees, and we'd like the towns to participate. My request from the Durham Great Bay Rotary is that the town of Durham authorize $1,000 toward the event for the fireworks.
Yeah, I'm sorry, you said the town of Durham, you mean the town of Lee?
I'm sorry, we've been up to our ears working with the town of Durham. We are struggling with a variety of events. The venue is, we've run into what we'd like to refer to as horse problems. And we are not sure that we can run the event at the Boulder Field that we did because of the horses were disturbed. And so there's experts, horse people, and a lot of others involved as to whether or not we're going to be able to do it there, or where we are going to be able to do it. So I would tell you it's not in the bag, but I do believe this is a political issue and it'll be worked through.
Yeah, because you've had it there previous and
And the horses
all
lived.
the years.
Yes, in all the years. Well, the university runs fireworks there on a regular basis. So the new horse disturbance was something that took us all by surprise. But as the university flexes its muscles because of the size of the venue and the demands for it, there's a lot of pushing and pulling going on. And we're working through that and the other issues. For your information, the town of Durham has been very magnanimous in their support and they have come up with about in-kind and cash donations to the tune of $6,000 to $7,000. And so they've been very supportive, and so we feel that after looking it over, that asking the other three towns to come up with $1,000 each would be a reasonable request.
I know, Frank, that you don't pay, people don't pay to get in, but do you have any gauge in terms of how many people actually attended?
Yeah, first off, it was a little difficult, but I think it was between 2,000 and 4,000 people.
Okay.
And I believe that we're anticipating a significant increase in people this coming year. The word on the street was it was well worth it, and we've been encouraged to move forward. I think we're going to see a significantly larger crowd.
In past years, it's been.
We haven't had,
pretty
actually,
large.
Brian, you might be, I think we've had to the tune of 5,000
Right.
people out there.
I would say
And so
that.
we anticipate going back there and actually probably more, as the venue is far nicer. And it's more convenient, and we think they'll be able to bring much more services. But those services now all have to be provided by the university because of their contracts and food vending issues in the bathrooms and a lot of stuff that goes on with that.
Yeah.
So working through that takes away our ability to earn funds there, because we used to have vendors there that we received money from, and now we can't do that because of the university issues. So finding money has primarily come from businesses and citizens in the three-town area, four-town area.
So no more food trucks?
We expect we will have food trucks, yes, but they have to be out of the area there and can't interfere with the vending company that's actually inside the stadium itself.
Oh, okay.
We're not sure that was very successful anyway, so we're trying to relook at it. The first year, I think you all agree, was a lessons learned, and we're going to try to apply those lessons to be a little more efficient.
Okay.
All right, anybody else? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hey. Hey.
All right, do we have
Meals on Wheels?
anyone else? All right,
Okay.
thank you.
Do you prefer me here or there? I don't know the
Microphone's over there, so if you don't mind.
I'm Jamie Stagnan. I'm with the Stratton Nutrition Meals and Meals Program. First of all, I want to thank you guys for And the town residents are supporting us last year with a $1,500 donation. We're asked if you could please consider giving us that donation again this year. We did serve 23 of the Lee residents, about 3,000 meals. And that goes along with our safety checks and all that stuff, monitoring their safety. Other than that, I don't know if you guys have particular questions about our program or questions about our request. You know, we've been working very hard. Last year I explained to you, this is now my second year here, and I feel like I've substantially changed the program already, and I have, you know, still more plans to even improve it and stuff like that. And we're getting a lot of positive feedback from our clients. We're right in the middle of doing another survey to see how they're feeling about the program and how it's affecting their lives. And I'd be willing to provide that when that's completed, if people would like to see that.
Can you share any of the things you're thinking about in terms of changes that you're thinking of?
Well, mainly, primarily, there's a couple of things I'm working on. I'm trying to work more with our caterer and expand and offer some better options for people, because, you know, we can't be like a restaurant and totally cater, but there's a lot of different medical issues out there and needs. Like one of the ones I'm in talks with right now about with our caterer, if they could do any kind of renal diet, things like that. Of course, it boils down to costs and stuff like that. So that's one thing. I'm still trying to get to a stronger financial place that I can go back to 5 days of service. Right now, we provide meals for Wednesday, but they're frozen meals. We're not actually delivering on Wednesday right now. I was hoping that this year might be a year that I could have enough funding to go back to 5, but then, as I put in my letter, we got a hit from the federal level with the NSIP money they send into the state, and we were informed in like August that my particular agency is going to lose about $20,000 this year. So step forward, step back, you know. But it's you know, it means that I can't move forward yet, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I have to reduce things as long as I can make up some of this gap and stuff like that. So, any other questions?
We're all set?
You all do a great job.
Thank you, and I appreciate you guys, you know, support for last year. It made a difference, it really helps, okay?
It makes a
Thank you.
difference.
And if you guys
In a lot
ever
of
have any
ways,
questions,
so, no, it's wonderful.
thank you. Feel free to get in contact with us, though, if you have any questions at any point, okay?
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Who else do we have here? Is Cornerstone? Cornerstone.
Forgive me, I'm sore. Never try a new workout program during the week. Can you just tell you that?
Okay.
Take my word on that. Here it is. So my name is Jennifer Gullison. I'm the clinical director at Cornerstone VNA, and we have Carrie Landry. She's our finance director. Hello. Thank you for having us. Are you guys familiar with Cornerstone and our work in the community? So we're actually involved with 37 towns currently. We go as far up as Effingham, Ossipee. We come over to Lee, and then we go as far as Wolfboro, and then we service some counties in Maine. So we've been around. Okay. We've been around since 1913, and our last merger was in 2000, and that was between Rochester VNA and Rural District VNA at Farmington. And some people don't know that we've changed some names over the past several years, but we're still the same organization. So Cornerstone is the name we're going to stick with and not change that name. But we deliver home care, we deliver private duty, we have hospice, we have palliative care, we do perinatal care. And what we're looking for from the town is some support for our specialized programs. We have technology that we utilize in the homes, and we have a lot of advanced services that don't get reimbursed by any payer. And it makes us different because if you're sick in the hospital and you have diabetes, if you come home with an infusion, wound care, we have those nurses to be able to provide that in home. And then just some facts from 2017. We did almost 600,000 miles traveled for homes. We did 872 community clinics and health screenings that we provide within the communities. We did 246 flu clinics, and we did over almost 6,800 volunteer hours. So we do seek support from the towns to continue with those programs so that we can survive for another 100 years.
So my role as Director of Finance is to present you with some of the financial information. I've included in the packet that you have in front of you our annual report from last year, which also has the community benefit funding that we provide, which is basically the free care and the education that we give back to the communities that we service. For right now, where we service 37, 38 communities, we only get funding from about 11. And what that does for us, the aging population is growing. So the more referrals we have in, we have to make a determination on where we're going to be able to provide our staffing. There is a staffing shortage, nursing, it's ridiculous. So we do have to turn away some towns, and we usually, not usually, but most of the time, we preference the towns that are able to give us some funding. So for the town of Lee, in the last 12 months, we've provided care to 47 of your residents at a cost of about $160,000. That was the cost that we lost about $10,000 just on those 47 patients. And that doesn't include any contracted rates with some of the insurance companies in the area. So really, when we go out to the towns, we just ask something based on your pro rata capital and your census. Some towns, it's anywhere between 1,000 and 5,000. Rochester is our biggest community, so we have a very nice lump sum that we get from the town of Rochester. But some towns could just anywhere from 1,000. I think I asked you guys for about $3,400 based on what your census was and based on who we serviced. And that really, that helps contribute to that $10,000 loss, as well as put Lee on the list for servicing those that don't have any coverage at all. We hate to turn away anybody, so it's really, I think we're all here to service the people in our community, and we don't want anybody to end up back in the emergency room. Do you have any questions for us as services or financial or?
I think you guys do a great job.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you. There's like some Band-Aids too, in case you had a.
Band-Aids?
We're not bribing you.
Free Band-Aids?
Why not?
I took it from.
Comes out of the 3,400.
That's right, just a bit.
Oh.
Any other questions?
So, you do the whole town of Lee, this area? I know some.
Absolutely,
Like, I have a
yes.
home care business actually, and I've worked with you many times before.
Oh,
and
good.
With excellent results. But, so you service the whole town ofLee?
Yes,
We service the
Because
whole
there are
town.
certain
I know.
companies that will take like a section and say, oh, this other company over here will, you know.
Yeah, no, we do the whole town of Lee.
Yeah.
Yep.
All right. And so the 47 is based on last year, what you had?
It's the last 12 months, so
Okay.
that's September 30th to October 1st of this year is 47 patients. And actually, that was 867 visits. So that was not a whole lot of one-up visits. That was full-fledged episodic care.
Hours care.
Yeah.
And I probably know a few of them. So, all right. Anybody,
No, I thought I did, but it was a different,
you still do
operation.
intakes like every other company does, and you decide whether they're appropriate for your, services and so forth, but
Well, the
from
nurse.
what I've seen, for the most part, you accept
We accept a lot of patients.
pretty much.
And what it boils down to is the towns that we receive funding from, so Medicaid is an example,
Mhm.
and then patients that don't have any insurance. We have to be able to have enough resources to go around, so the towns that we receive funding, we're able to do Medicaid and self-pay.
So you, most,
Yes,
everybody that applies.
yes.
Yes.
Okay, I'm good.
So can I ask a financial question?
Absolutely.
You said of the people that you serve, of the towns that you service, only 11 provide, you ask all of them though, right? Correct?
We do, and that's right now, we went through a period, an economic period, where some of the funding was deteriorating. Towns, like everybody else, are losing their own funding. So, but now we're being asked by the towns the exact same question. Do you ask everybody for funding? So this year, we have asked all 37 towns for funding.
And do you have a list of who gives you and who doesn't?
I do, yes.
Oh,
Yeah.
maybe you could send it to us.
Oh, sure,
'Cause I
absolutely.
probably know some people in those towns and I'll make them visit you.
Oh, that's
That's nice.
Yeah, get some more funding for them.
Absolutely, absolutely. So you want the list of those who do provide funding or don't?
Well, you've given us the list of all the places you serve, so I can probably figure that out. Let's do the positive.
Okay.
Who gives you money?
Yes, yes.
And I'll see if I know anybody that's in charge of those towns that don't. If I can,
That would be very helpful. It is,
well, I can't promise anything, but
no,
guilt goes a long way.
Yeah.
it's hard when you lose, just on the patients that we've serviced for you, that $10,000. That's a lot of money that can go somewhere. We are a nonprofit, so that's part of our mission. But at some part in the game there, we have to be able to provide the wages and the education to our staff.
Yep.
So,
Thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Right, thank you. Who else do we have here? ORYA? Yep. All right, sure.
Hey,
I'm Matt Glode, ORWA Director.
Ted Mulligan, Vice President of the board.
So we're here to discuss and answer any questions you might have for our social services funding request of $28,700 for youth sports opportunities that we provide to the Lee community as well as the German member.
one of the questions, Ben, I guess, couldn't be here tonight.
Yeah, he's traveling. I think he's been doing his Buffalo run this week.
One of the things he told me just recently is the board, most of us are familiar with your history in terms of national history. And we met as a group down in the Durham Council Chambers. And he said that you come up with some different things that you're doing in response to that. And he says there's a report that's coming. I haven't seen it yet, but he says there's a report that's coming in terms of all the updates that you guys have done. I don't know if one of you can touch on those particular things, because that's something you shared with me, you didn't share it in public, so I don't know if that's something that you can talk to us about.
Sure. So in response to an issue that ORWA had with some coaches and an investigation that followed, we've made some changes and some improvements that we feel would support our organization of not having those again and provide a better experience for our volunteers that also works its way down to the participants. So in the past, we would require background checks for our volunteer coaches to be part of the programs. We have moved to take an extra step of also requiring what's called Safe Sport Certification. They're a national organization that had originally only worked through Olympic Committee sports. So if, as an example, our hockey coaches have always had to do Safe Sport certifications because their leagues participate in USA Hockey governed leagues. So USA Hockey would oversee that, they had their own separate requirements. So just in June of this year, they actually opened their service and education and training up to any group. We were one of the very first in the country to basically sign with them, and our coaches go through, it's about an hour and a half to hour and 45-minute training. It's done online. And that covers mandatory reporting. That covers physical, sexual, and emotional misconduct and education. So not only the do's and don'ts as a coach working with players, but signs that could showcase something going on in a player's life outside of this sport. So as a very small example, a player might come to you for the first 3 or 4 weeks of your program, and he's super upbeat, chipper, talking well with all of his teammates and you as a coach. And then the next couple of weeks, they're really reserved and don't feel like participating the way that they once did. And that's part of the education of that could be a sign of something, and then what to do from there. An additional step that we've done is added on Positive Coaching Alliance, which is also a national governing body, to be able to provide training to our coaches, which I brought it on because it will support a consistent coaching philosophy no matter what sport it is. So if you coach soccer and you coach lacrosse and you coach tennis, the way that you communicate to kids can be the same. The way that you focus on promoting the things that you want the player to do rather than focusing on the things you want them to not do. And that so far has been positive. I've heard some good feedback from coaches saying that I've actually used some of those things and it seems to make a difference. So I got a call last week from our contact with Positive Coaching Alliance, and they chose us for a grant. They got some money donated by Chevy, and we're going to be the New Hampshire recipient of that. So we're actually going to hold 2 extra in-person workshops on November 19th, and we're inviting all of the OR middle school and high school coaches to come, as well as the specific age range that will be geared towards players as well. We've had 2 in-person workshops thus far, and those have been coach-centered and volunteer-centered. So now we're actually going to have one for players as well, which I'm kind of looking forward to, and I know that the athletic director I've been setting up with is as well. I've also set up a web-based page and communicated where to find that, so that hopefully the lines of communication are more clearly defined. They know where to go and who to go to if they have any issues that they've found or have experienced or witnessed. And those are the big things that we've undertaken so far. There'll be some program-specific changes as well from there.
Most of the issues that came out of this past kerfuffle, whatever we want to call it, are resolved. How do you consider your relationship now with the other towns that are involved here, the Madbury, the Durham, et cetera? How is that standing with you?
With me personally, I feel as though through that incident, everybody has kind of reset and asked, all right, why are we involved? And I think that communities like yours and Madbury, most specifically, because I have a little bit more communication with people involved in those communities, it seems like oh yeah, this is why you guys provide a good service to the residents that we have and the youth that we serve. And those questions are all valid. If you work with a group after 10 years, there's going to be evolution within that group as well as your own community. So it's good to kind of hit that reset button, understand why you have that relationship and why it is positive. So I feel like that's been the majority of the conversations that have come from that so far.
Let me change the subject a little bit. I've seen some message traffic relative to crabgrass.
Yep.
And can you kind of give me a status of the crabgrass issue?
It is a lot harder than you would think to deal with that stuff. So we feel like we treat the fields as though they're our own. We use them, I would say, 99.9% of the time, with the exception of when rentals would come in, and those are never guaranteed. You guaranteed that we're going to be using that space, so we want to make sure that that space is as quality as it can be. Our Babe Ruth program is the ones that utilizes the field at Little River Park, which is what you're referring to. And that is not as big of a program as our majors or minors baseball program. So they don't use it as often. If you don't use it as often, that grass will creep in very fast, especially with the rate of mowing that goes on out there. The outfield is going to look like Fenway if you go out there on that right after they mow it, and that gets the seeds in there. So I've had multiple conversations and received probably 3 different quotes for addressing it. We work with Gary Cowan primarily with Hillside Landscaping, and he's given me multiple different ways to approach it. And we're gonna go with a different direction than we have in the past to try to address it. Our fall program has just finished. We did have a fall team out there practicing, so it was used in the state that it was. We want it to be in better shape. We had it rototilt at the beginning of the season, which was a pretty large expense for us. We did every field. We did the one next to Mastway School. We did the ones that we utilized in the other communities as well. And we did the one at Little River Park. And that's how quickly it came back. It looks like that was never done. So we are going to be approaching it with a spraying schedule now, rather than just keeping up to it on a dragging basis. We just don't have the volunteers to be able to be out there on a mow. You have to kind of keep up with it after every mowing for that to not happen. So we're going to go with a spraying schedule, and that's going to be topical spraying, not mixed into the soil. There are extra health issues when you do that, and you have to do a public notice of that and everything. So we don't want to go there. That's actually not recommended by Hillside or the other groups that we've had quotes from. So that's where we're moving. We're going to have that done prior to it basically going down for the winter, so very soon, and then we'll have it done right at the beginning of the year, and then as needed based on how much it comes in.
Okay, good, thank you.
Can I ask a question? If that baseball field were sized differently, would you be able to use it more?
We would definitely use it more. However, if we did not have a field to the size that it is, our Babe Ruth program would have no place to play locally. So it's kind of a catch-22. We need a spot for our older players to play, but at that age, they're either playing for their school or their freshman year of high school, and they've chosen to move on to other things. So that is actually a fluctuating program for us over the past 3-4 years. Sometimes we have one team, sometimes we have two teams, and that's kind of where it stays, where we'll have 5 or 6 at the age grouping directly below it.
So the facility is unique to the 3 towns that...
It is. It's the only sized field, only that size field, Babe Ruth.
The 90.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
A couple of things that came out of the meeting that we had in Durham. One, that you have an MOU with us, but you have one with Magre, but not with Durham. Has that come to fruition?
I have conversation with Rachel. We share an office building, so we're right next to each other. They're in the final stages of presenting that to us. I've seen a draft. They've based it largely off of the one that we have with you, and they're going to present that to us relatively soon.
Okay. And the same kind of similar situation with the school. There was some issue with insurance that you guys were dealing with, or
not directly with us. Yeah, not there. There was an after the short story is an after-school program violated American with Disabilities Act, and
But not your program?
not us. This was not an ORA program. This was an in-house program. It's not even a school program, but they used the school facilities, and those that brought the suit didn't go to the after-school program. They went to the school district because they're the ones who housed that program. So they spent a large number of dollars on legal fees to take care of this. So based on that, they've updated their use agreement, which use contract for every outside non-ORCSD organization that uses the facilities. I signed that 2 weeks ago, and I'm in meetings, continual meetings to kind of get down to the nuts and bolts of what line 3 actually means as it relates to ORYA, etc. I had a lot of questions for them. I'm working with Catherine Plord, who is their ADA person, as well as I think special education coordinator, and the right-hand woman to Jim Morse for issues like this, as well as Andy Lathrop, their athletic director.
So you're all set, because that was kind of like, oh my gosh, you won't let us use your facilities unless we sign this.
Yes, so I'm still kind of like, for example, part of their use agreement says that we have to follow all of the school district's policies and procedures. If you've ever seen how many policies and procedures the school district has, that's a daunting thing. So I went through just one section, the J section, which is relevant to students, and I had 3 pages of questions. Do we have to have a mental health counselor in-house at ORYA to deal with issues? Because they do. So Catherine told me over the phone, some of your questions were getting sorted out. Jim was away on a couple days trip or something. But some of these you're not going to have to worry about. And I'm thinking to myself, it's in the contract, I'm gonna have to worry about it, so I'm gonna need these things in writing, so that's why we're in the process of this.
So hopefully they can address your concerns and
Exactly.
say, you're exempt from this, this, and this.
Exactly, yep.
Any changes coming in terms of this next year that you can anticipate?
You know, a change that will affect a lot of different things is our program director just moved on to a job a lot closer to where he lives in the Concord area. So we are currently looking for a new program director. And our office intern communication coordinator, which is a brand new full-time position, is actively looking for positions where she moved in the Manchester area. So there will be reshuffling within our paid staff. Currently, it's myself and our office intern and communication coordinator. And we're going to discuss as a board at our next meeting about how to approach kind of the shuffling of the paid positions.
Yeah, and I think another significant thing the organization is doing is undergoing very formalized strategic planning. We started it just a month or two before the kerfuffle, and it got sidelined, and we've just picked it back up in the last 6 weeks or so. We've had 3 or 4 meetings, and so we really are committed to getting a strategic plan in place with some 3 or 4 items by next spring.
One of those things that Ben mentioned is the possibility of you guys exploring not receiving funding from the towns. So I assume that's in their discussions.
Oh, yeah, that's, you know, and we've expanded it to include a review of the business model. You know, the business model, you know, back in the day was all volunteer, a little bit of town money. And it has sort of morphed into now, it's a lot of user-based fees and a little bit of town money, much larger budget, fields, this and that. So, but our bylaws dictate, you know,
We're still on the other-
still on the old business
scenario.
model.
Yeah.
And even our board is sitting there like, geez, you know, we almost feel hamstrung a little bit because we kind of want to do this other stuff, and it's like, so part of that is looking at our bylaws. Nothing's changed yet, but so that's and in light of the kerfuffle, that has sort of got us thinking in other ways too. Part of it is, can we be self-sustaining? Do we want to be self-sustaining? Do towns want us to be self-sustaining? You know, how is all that going to play into it? Speaking to your question about how are you with the towns, you know, we went head to head with Durham a little bit there. It's better now. Some of the emotion has been taken out of it. Ben's done a great job of just, you know, getting everybody off.
Without mentioning town names, have any of them cut their funding to you?
They suspended funding, and I believe that Ben's had discussions with them, and they have decided to uphold the agreement from the previous year.
Good.
We have not received all of that to date, and it was 6 months at least behind, potentially.
Yeah, they've committed to that funding, that full fiscal year, and I think they owe 1, maybe 2 more quarters. Going forward, there's talk of cutting or reducing funding in the next fiscal year, and that's in the current budget
As a
cycle.
result of this,
Who knows?
Not as a result of the kerfuffle,
yeah,
more of a, as I keep referring to that, I won't be able to call it anything else now, but it's a great name for
that's
it.
what Judge Judy uses.
It's a great term, plus it flows off.
Judge Brown.
It's not as a result of that, it's more of their budget process, and Durham's looking at every single dime. And I also think that the writing is on the wall with Durham in terms of, we've asked for a soft landing to the funding. And so the negotiations is, you know, how soft is that gonna be? And that's to be determined. And we're aware that, similar discussions, I mean, it's logical to have similar discussions with the other two towns. How it goes and where it lands, who knows, depends on what each party would like to do.
And change the subject again, the other team organization, I forget their name, Julie, the gentleman with
The ones renting.
Maximum velocity?
Yeah, Maximum Velocity. How's your relationship working with them? Because we had some conflicts over fields, et cetera, et cetera.
I think it depends on who you ask. I've known their president, I wouldn't say founder, I think he founded it with another gentleman named Greg Tucker, but Geoff Carlton.
Yeah.
I've known him for years. We see each other in soccer field and whatnot. I get along with him fine. If you ask some people in our soccer organization, our volunteer soccer coaches and coordinators, they would feel that he has taken players from the ORWA program, knowing full well that they would not continue to play with our program once they join his program. I come from the soccer world before this, where Seacoast United, right down the road, and our groups play, or Seacoast United teams play in leagues, against Seacoast United-like groups. MV has promoted itself as a group that will offer that next level, and a lot of the teams end up playing against the ORYA teams. So the players can't actually be on this both teams at the same time. So that's caused a little tension from those that are still within ORYA, where could we have had an 06 and 07 team this year if we had those players back? Absolutely, but we had to combine them. So now an age group is actually having to play up an age group and not having an appropriate experience because some players have left. Players have choice. I understand that, and that's fine. And in a lot of ways, that makes us do a better job.
Okay. Any issues over the field?
No, not at all. No.
Okay, thank you.
I'm all set.
Everybody good? All right.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
All right, thank you guys.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, gentlemen.
All right.
Hopefully Denise can spell that when she gets the name.
Yeah, right. We have Child and Family Services. Child and Family Services.
Yeah, I'm Paul with Child and Family Services. How are you guys tonight? Great, thanks for the opportunity. We applied for our family counseling program. We served 2 families for 20 hours total, and we're requesting $1,000, which is what we requested last year. And the program, Family Counseling, counsels youth, children, adults, and families, children with behavioral challenges, problems in school, adjusting to divorce and step-family adjustment, family violence, relationship conflicts, emotional complaints, stress, self-defeating behaviors, addictive behaviors, loss, trauma, anxiety, phobia, and compulsions. And so we have 2 families in the town of Lee that we served for a total of 20 hours, which works out to be about $50 an hour to counsel these families.
20 hours over what period of time?
I think it's the past year from when we applied before.
Okay, okay.
Right, I'm all set.
Wow, you guys talked to those guys for 30 minutes. I was like, holy bro, I'm gonna have to talk for 30 minutes about family. I can make an opening statement, but I came here last year, I remember, and I talked about child and family and the nature of what we do.
Right.
We're a statewide organization. We travel 1 million miles to bring service to 10,000 individuals. We pride ourselves in the fact that we travel so much because we bring counseling to the communities, if not to the home, when no one else will. About 90% of the 10,000 people we see is are under the poverty level. And our fastest growing population right now is seniors.
And what's the process for knowing you exist and getting in touch with you for those kinds of services?
Well, I think what happens is these families typically, and this number fluctuates, because if it's 4 families in Lee next year, we'll serve them regardless. And we get referrals from schools, referrals from doctor's office, referrals from other social service agencies.
Okay.
We're quite collaborative, we all are quite collaborative. If there's a problem we can't handle, it's referred to somebody else. If there's a problem somebody else can't handle, it's not the nice thing about social service is that we're not really competitive agencies. We freely collaborate.
Yeah, good, thank you.
Okay.
Anybody else set?
Yeah, I didn't have questions because you did a nice presentation last time, so.
Oh,
Good.
good.
Not interested.
I
Wow,
remember that last
I
year.
had no idea I had the power of oration like that. But, no, we appreciate the town support, and thank you very much for the time.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Good night.
Yeah.
Thank you. So, community action?
Yep.
Community action? See, county back.
Yeah.
Okay.
Good evening, my name is Kathy Compton. I am the Director of Strategic Planning for the Community Action Partnership of Stratford County. And we're asking tonight for level funding of another $2,000. Most of the services that we've been able to provide here in Lee this year have been through our electrical assistance program and our fuel assistance program. So we had 29 people who were able to receive services, help with their electricity. Often those are people who heat with electricity as well as have high electrical bills. And we had fuel assistance to 44 individual homes. The average amount that people get on the fuel assistance program is $650 a year. And we hope that if oil prices go down, we can squeeze out even a little more this year. And the average for the electrical assistance is about $350. So those were the large programs. We're also happy to report this year that we were able to help 4 homeowners with weatherization, which is a program that helps people stay in their homes because we try to help them make them safe and warm. So that's been very exciting. We also have a food basket program during the holidays, and we did have 13 people from Lee who came by and picked up food baskets. We had 4 people from, 2 people. Two. Who were homeless and who came to us and reported that they came from Lee. So in that program, what we're able to do is we have people who can actually go out in literally the field sometimes, see the folks, assess what they need, and we try very hard to get housing, which is always, as you know, has become more difficult over the years. But we have been able to get people houses and additional services that they need. So we will continue to do all of those. We also have a home visiting program that a couple of young families have been able to use, which is called Healthy Families America, and it's a structured, evidence-based program where they go in to the home when the mom's pregnant, ideally, and stays with them till the child's 2 years old. So those are the services that we have provided, and I'd be happy to answer any questions about what we're up to.
Can you give us an update in terms of the fuel assistance program? Has the funding levels stayed the same, up,
The
down?
funding levels on all our programs currently have stayed the same because we're in the continuing resolution from last year's budget.
Okay.
Now, in this October, we're in another continuing resolution until January. So we are hoping that we will be okay. And it does seem that fuel assistance for now is doing pretty well.
Okay.
That's not a program that they've talked about as much as some of the housing programs. Head Start actually got an increase. It's been a funny, you're not sure what's going to come up. But so far we have remained pretty much unscathed. What we haven't been able to do is develop huge programs without getting, private financial assistance for that. But we've been able to do all of the federal-based programs.
My wife is very involved in an outreach program for church, and I know
Yep.
she deals with GAP quite a bit. But certainly you've seen an increase in the demand, if you would, for services, because she's gone from being on the phone once a day to
Yep.
being on the phone 4 or 5 times a day now.
Yeah. Last year,
It's just unbelievable.
yeah, it is unbelievable. We have in the summertime, it's a program that provides summer meals for little kids who end up in parks. And it's the way that they decide who's eligible is they go by the census tract. So if the census tract says most of the children in this area are low income, then we're able to go in, so we don't have to worry about names and all of that. And so we do that in the summer, and last year we served over 22,000 meals.
Really?
I mean, it's just, yeah. And we also have a food pantry that just gets bigger and bigger. And people are really struggling. Even though the economy has improved, we have a lot of people who still have.
It hasn't trickled down
Right,
to that
exactly.
level yet, for
Right.
sure.
Right.
People are hurt. They're hurting bad.
Yeah, yep.
You get funding from different towns in Stratford. Do you
Yeah.
get funding from every town in Stratford County?
We get funding from, I was thinking about that, 8 towns and then the 3 cities.
Okay.
And the cities give us CDBG money, so that it's
Oh.
larger amounts of money.
You did block grants.
Yeah, yeah. So we try some of this real tiny towns. I think up north are having an even more difficult time, so. But we really appreciate all that you've been able to do for us, and we are there anytime people need anything. If we don't serve it, as Paul was saying, we certainly are someone who can find
Do it for all.
that, right, find a program that will. So,
Excellent.
thank you. Thank you very much.
Almost have it.
Thank you very much.
Okay, that's great.
I think that's all that were on your list that you, is anyone else?
I don't see anyone else.
No one else? So,
You want to turn the meeting back over?
back over to.
Okay, I will, any comments for anybody? I will make a motion to adjourn.
Aye.
Oh, you can't vote. You should get that.